I'm Tom Boriak with the Clay Valve Fueling Department. Today, we're going to continue our series on the 347 GF underwing nozzle. In this series, we've been highlighting easy maintenance tips and quality control checks for the nozzle. Today, we'll be highlighting changing the interlock O-ring, which sits between the body and the interlock. A lot of times, people will change the nose seal and the O-ring associated and still have a leak. A lot of times, this is because the interlock O-ring is also damaged and needs to be replaced. During this exercise, you'll also see how easy it is to change the bayonet ring on the nozzles. Recently, Clay Valve has changed from a flat bayonet ring to a ramped bayonet ring. So if you have a historical nozzle that has the flat bayonet ring, one piece change out will allow you to move to a ramped bayonet ring for a much better connection. All right. Now that we have our nozzle, the first thing we want to do is to remove our nose seal and O-ring in there. So we'll use our interlock tool. Use our 7/8" wrench. Loosen our swivel nut so that we can remove the poppet. This will allow us to remove the nose seal. And now we can continue by removing the bumper. We have grooves in the side of the bumper that will allow you to use a flat blade screwdriver to easily pop off the bumper. For the purpose of this demonstration, I don't have all the socket head cap screws in here. Typically there's 12. I've only got 2, so we'll remove those so that we can remove our bayonet ring. We can set our bayonet ring to the side, our interlock ring to the side, and remove our springs. While we're doing this, this is also a really good time just to inspect all the parts visually. Now, the next step would be to remove the interlock. The interlock won't simply slide out because it's held in place by the swivel nut. So we need to remove the swivel nut. To do that, we'll extend the stem by unlocking the nozzle. We'll lay the nozzle down, and using a flat blade screwdriver, we'll remove the C-clip on the back side of the swivel nut. We'll slide the swivel nut back, and there's 2 half-moon keys that hold it in place that we'll remove as well. Our swivel nut will now slide off. Once we've done this, we can now slide our interlock out. This is the O-ring we'll be changing right here. So we can use a pick and remove it and use the new one in the kit to replace it with. You'll want to use a light coating of jet lube on the O-ring itself. We're also going to inspect it for any damage and make sure it's clean. Now, before we go back together, you'll see that there's a Delrin thrust washer in the top of the body. This is because the body is aluminum and the interlock is stainless steel. So it gives us a nice point of relief in the contact so we don't have one acting on the other. Before we install the interlock, we want to be sure that we install it between the 2 interlock points. These are interlock stops, and this gives us control of allowing our nozzle to open or close when it's connected to an aircraft. So we'll take the interlock, slide it onto the stem, make sure we're seated between our two stops, and push it into place. Now that we've done that, we need to put our swivel nut back in place. So we'll lay it down on the side again, slide our swivel nut on, our two half-moon keys, and then our C-clip. This is a free-floating swivel nut. This is what allows us to have a set height poppet that you don't need to check to see if your poppet is adjusted right to your nose sill. Now that that's on, we want to make sure our interlock is in the correct position. So we'll close our nozzle and put it in and make sure the handle is closed appropriately. Now that we're in this position, we can go ahead and start building the nozzle back. We'll start with our 3 springs so that we can locate in the appropriate position on the top of the interlock. There's 3 holes that they slide into that have a bottom, so they'll fit in nicely. Next, on our interlock ring, we have 3 indentations. Those are what will sit on the springs, so it puts us in the correct clocking for this piece. At this point, if you have a flat bayonet and you want to upgrade to a ramped bayonet, much like I have right here, that'll allow for a better connection to the aircraft, this is at that point you would make that change. And again, for the sake of the video, we're only going to use 2 screws going back in. Otherwise, you'd put all 12 in and you would torque to the appropriate value. Before we put our bumper on, we need to install our nose sill. So we'll slide our nose sill in, and then we need to install our poppet. So we'll open the nozzle up, thread our poppet onto the swivel nut, lock it into place, and then using a torque wrench, torque it to the appropriate value. If you don't have an opened-in torque wrench like this, we make a tool that will allow you to put this on the poppet and torque from the center, much like a crow's foot. But instead of a crow's foot where you're on the outside, you're over center of the poppet. So it gives you the appropriate torque. Now that we've installed that, we can close our nozzle, remove our key, and the only thing remaining is putting our bumper on. To put our bumper on, we want to warm the bumper in hot water for about 20 to 30 seconds so that it's a little bit malleable and it slides over the interlock. It's much easier on this nozzle because I only have 2 screws in there. So we can push it around and pop it into place just like that. Now we have replaced the interlock O-ring, had the opportunity to change the bayonet ring to a ramped bayonet, as well as change our nose sill and the O-ring behind it. We look forward to having you in our continuing series of the 347 GF maintenance and quality control videos.